Hey guys, so I'm on the PTR right now, and in this video I just really want to talk about the new artifact traits for the Elemental Shaman, and just talk about the Tier 20 Tomb of Sargeras set bonuses as well. So let's start off, look at the new traits that we have for the Elemental Shaman. So, we have all the same here, everything is the same, and you unlock these additional traits right here. And when you do so, you keep the baseline 5% that you get from that 35th point. And then you also get the ability to put in an increased damage by 10% and stamina by 10%. Now, when I put this in, my life total was pretty much essentially the same that it was when it was 54. On live with the same gear, well, I can't target myself right now easily. I have 3.69 million health right now. On live, I have 3.61. So I'm getting about the same amount of stamina that you would otherwise, as well as having the 5% damage here and 10% here, so you're gaining 0.5%. Now the next one here is called Elemental Destabilization. Increases the effectiveness of Elemental Fury by 20%. It's 5% per rank. Elemental Fury is your crit modifier, which makes your crit deal baseline 250% extra damage instead of 200. So now with this, with 4 points, it's 270%. This seems like a really strong trait to me. I'm struggling to see the difference between adding 5% extra crit, like crit damage, compared to Molten Blast, which just gives critical strike damage of Lava Burst by 2% per rank. This seems over twice as strong, 5% per rank. I don't know if that's accurate or not. I haven't really done the math, but it's just in my head, that's what I think. And it seems like a really strong trait. I like it a lot. It makes critical strikes more effective just in general. So we'll probably retain that stat priority of crit being at or near the top. So over here we have Swelling Maelstrom. Increases your maximum Maelstrom and the maximum cost of Earth Shock by 25. So this seems like pretty cool little thing here. It'll make our Maelstrom dumps hit a little harder, specifically Earth Shock, obviously. Now I'm not sure how much harder. I would assume just 25% harder. Mine already crit for 2.2 million or something with the 4 points in Elemental Destabilization. So dealing 25% extra damage suddenly on a crit, you're dealing like 550k extra damage. Seems really strong. And having the maximum Maelstrom by 25, so you're at 125, is really nice for AoE. I feel like you will cap a lot less on things like dropping Earthquakes, because a lot of times a static overload will put you at 100, and then you have to dump 2, and then you do another, like Chain Lightning, but maybe you only get 30 Maelstrom on that. And then you have to cast another, and then you just cap at 100 again because of an overload. So this should make it a little easier to spend your Maelstrom in AoE situations and not overcap as much. So the last one here, the Golden Seismic Storm. When Earthquake deals damage, it has a chance to cause a lightning strike dealing a whopping 0% nature damage. Obviously it'll do some damage. I'm not sure how much. I'm sure that this will once again make Earthquake very strong in AoE situations. And it could actually make the legendary Shoulders much more valuable, depending on how much damage that Lightning Strike actually ends up doing. I'm assuming the Lightning Strike, it doesn't say anything about AoE damage, I'm assuming it'll just be like a random target will be hit for however much damage. It still seems like it could be pretty strong considering you want to drop Earthquakes anyways. So I'm liking these traits quite a bit. I think the extra Maelstrom and cost makes for a more satisfying Earthshock finisher, as well as making the overall Maelstrom generation more fluid, especially in AoE situations. And the Elemental Destabilization, I really like this, just giving more modifier on crit damage. I feel like, if my math is correct and this remains unchanged, this will end up being our best trait in pretty much all situations. Maybe except for AoE, where you just chain lightning and earthquake damage. We also get extra ranks, 1 extra rank in each of our 3-point traits. So just having an extra rank in Molten Blast and Lava Imbued or things like that will eventually be cool in what we're working for. So now let's talk about the set, Tomb of Sargeras. Real quick, I just want to show the different colors of the set. So this is the Raid Finder. I really like the Raid Finder. I love purple. It's my favorite color. It's like a color of royalty. It's mysterious and powerful to me. I just love it. I really like this. Unfortunately, it's like a double-edged sword because it's from Raid Finder, which means generally this will be fairly easy to obtain. But at the same time, a lot of people will be able to get this set fairly easily. So you won't really be able to stand out that much. But it's still really cool. I like it a lot. Um, this is just a good set in general, and it's really cool how they have the little toe things for trolls. I'm sure on Torrens they have something like it, but I really like that it adds that little extra bit since trolls like never get any boots. So the normal version is kind of a tealish color, I'd say is the main thing. I like this one a lot too. It's a fairly unique color, especially for a male wearer or a shaman. There isn't really anything like it in the game, just like the Raid Finder was. So I'm pretty happy with this one as well. The heroic one is kind of a golden color. The cloak is a little short. I don't like the short cloaks. I prefer the longer, more flowing cloaks. But this is still pretty nice in general. And the mythic is the nice blue. You add the extra little like feathers or whatever those are that are hanging off the shoulders. Now, something with this is the helmet is not yet implemented for the mythic. So right now we don't know what it looks like. I'm assuming it'll look something similar to this, except maybe slightly different because most of the other classes mythic have a little extra. Just like if you look at the shoulders right now, when I swap over to mythic they have these little extra things. Maybe the helm will have something extra as well. And something else to note that the new Cruel Gladiators Season 3 and 4, the Gladiator is like a nice solid orange. I really like this color a lot more than the heroic one. It's like a more thick orange. I like the bottom of the dress here. It's very nice. No little foot clamp things though, but oh well. Alright, so now let us talk about the actual set bonuses. So, your 2 set, while Fire Elemental is active, your Flame Shock deals 75% increased damage over time and always critically strikes. Now, I'm going to talk about this just for a second. You essentially would have Fire Elemental up, let's say on pull, it's up for a minute. So your Flame Shock will deal 75% increased damage over time and always critical strike. Now, the critical strike thing here is very important, just because it's going to deal an additional extra damage with your Elemental Fury and the extra traits that you get for that, the extra critical damage. And the 4 set on this is reduce the cooldown of Fire Elemental by 2 seconds when Flame Shock periodic damage deals a critical strike. So let's look at the Flame Shock duration and how many ticks you would naturally get while Fire Elemental is out. I believe the baseline is a Flame Shock ticks every 2 seconds. This may be incorrect, I'm not 100% sure on that. But while Fire Elemental is active, so the first minute of the fight, let's just say, you have your Flame Shock up for a minute, and let's just say baseline that you get 30 crits. So that instantly reduces the cooldown of Fire Elemental by 60 seconds, just automatically. It's pretty strong. Now, think about if you have a council fight, or if you have Flame Shock up on multiple targets. This is going to cause your Fire Elemental to be up very often. You also want to look into maybe being a troll, or just having a lot of extra haste could really affect this as well. Like, it's weird because you want crit because there's the Elemental Fury, the crit modifier as part of your artifact trait. But if your Flame Shock is always going to critically strike, at least while Fire Elemental is up, then it devalues crit in some aspects and values haste over anything for increased amount of dot ticks. What if all of a sudden now you get 45 ticks over the course of a minute? Now your Fire Elemental is a minute 30 less cooldown, plus the 2 seconds. That's cool. I got disconnected, guys. But then also having your Lava Burst lower the cooldown on Fire Elemental. When you're playing Ascendance right now, at least for me personally, I generally have about 3 minute and 20-second cooldown on the fire elemental. So now when you're in a situation where you have that plus the minus, like, let's just say a minute and a half, you're almost in a situation where you're going to have permanent uptime on fire elemental. And I believe people have done theorycraft and math this out a little bit, and playing Ascendance and having these bonuses up with like Primal Fire Elemental, especially, it's almost like a 20% DPS gain, which seems really strong. And personally, I like this set bonus, but there's a lot of complaints. And the main complaints I'm seeing are that it is kind of forcing you into certain talents. Like, it's pretty much going to force you into Primal Elementalist, because if you're going to have, let's just say, above 50% uptime on your Fire Elemental, having it be 80% more powerful, you're just going to get vastly more value out of this than you would Elemental Blast. You also have to keep in mind some things like Storm Elemental have, it's a different type of thing, because with a 2.5 minute cooldown, this one could generally be up for 100% of the time, if it's strong enough. Obviously, Echo the Elements is really strong, having Lava Burst, 2 charges, really lets you get extra Lava Burst in general, which lowers the cooldown of Fire Elemental. And the main thing you really want to look at is Ascendance. Yep. This set bonus, if it goes live the way it is, it could just make Ascendance the baseline spec for most situations. Potentially even AoE situations, just for the fact that you're getting a lot of extra Lava Burst, lowering the cooldown of your Fire Elemental even more. And on some fights, the Path of Flame, spreading Flame Shock to nearby targets, and then guaranteeing those also crit while Fire Elemental is up, you're going to have 100% uptime on Fire Elemental, especially if it's a Primal Elementalist, empowered one. It could be really strong. For me personally, I am okay with this. I already, as you guys are probably aware, I already like Ascendance a lot. But the problem is it's going to force people into these talents. I know a lot of people don't like playing Ascendance. They like Lightning Rod or they like Ice Fury, which is fine. They're both great. I prefer Ascendance, but for people that don't, it's completely taking away talent options. Like, Ascendance will probably be the go-to, because with the initial sims and the theory crafting involved for the people that were talking about this set bonus, that Ascendance was just coming out way ahead compared to these other two. Not like way ahead, but like at least 5% plus DPS difference, as well as having far more uptime on Primal Elementalist, or just your Fire Elemental in general. So I can definitely see where the issues lie. Taking away talent diversity is the complete opposite of what they did with the 7.1.5 patch, where pretty much any one of these talents are within like 1 or 2% of each other on single target. So you can pretty much play whatever you want with, and you can adjust based on the boss. To where with the tier 20 set bonus, you're just going to be forced into Ascendance most likely. We'll see if something changes or not, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm okay with it. I see people saying they don't want to become a pet class, and I wouldn't really classify this as a pet class, even if the bonuses went live. Like, having a full uptime on a Fire Elemental to me isn't like, oh my god, I'm suddenly a pet class. It's more along the lines of, wow, I have this really strong cooldown and it's up all the time. It feels really cool. Like, imagine if that was for your Ascendance. What if the ability was like, Flame Shot crits reduce the cooldown on Ascendance by 2 seconds? Like, holy shit. That'd be insane. But again, people will be like, well, I like Ice Fury, I like Lightning Rod. So again, you're forced into these situations where you don't have any other options, and you're limiting your gameplay. Now, something I want to talk about real fast before I end the video are potential changes to the set. I believe Slenderman from Storm, Earth, and Lava made a post on the Shaman WoW forums. He had a couple different ideas for different set bonuses. And one of them I really liked. I don't know if it'd be like a 2 set or a 4 set, but it could be something like maybe while Fire Elemental is active, your Flame Shock deals the increased damage over time and always crits. And then maybe the 4 set would be chance on crit to grant you 1 or 2 charges of Stormkeeper. So suddenly that puts us in a situation where, yes, you definitely want to have good fire elemental uptime. Your flame shock will deal extra damage, and you'll gain benefit from having it on multiple targets, as well as causing your critical strikes to give you free Stormkeeper charges. So that'll help our burst AoE in situations where, hey, suddenly we have a Stormkeeper empowered Chain Lightning. Only one charge, maybe, but giving us an extra proc as well as having the Lava Surge procs could give us much more dynamic gameplay and something to keep track of that makes for something like really entertaining choices to make and to be aware of, as well as if something like that happened, giving us like one or two or however many charges on like a lightning bolt. Suddenly you're in this situation where you have increased mobility, because a lot of people are complaining that shamans have low mobility right now, which is kind of the case, not 100%, but regardless, that could be a great idea for another tier 20 set bonus, something that wouldn't necessarily force you into playing Ascendance or force you into a pet class where you're going to have 100% fire elemental uptime, as well as keeping your options available. Like in this situation, maybe suddenly Ascendance isn't always the best, even though it'll lower the cooldown on your fire elemental more so than any of the other talents, so giving you more uptime on the 2-piece. But if you get Stormkeeper charges granted, maybe you wouldn't be able to use those Stormkeeper charges in time because you have Ascendance up. So there are different ideas here that come into play where you're not being forced into the same talents, and that's the big goal here. We want a strong set bonus, but we don't want it to be something like completely overpowered or forcing us into one spec. So sorry if the last couple minutes, last 5 minutes I rambled on about the being forced into certain talents, because I think it's a valid concern, 100%. But it's something that we need to keep in mind and give constructive feedback on to the devs. So go onto the Shaman forums. If you don't like this, give constructive ideas. Don't just say it's shit. Go make a thread or post on existing threads with really solid ideas for our bonuses that aren't forcing us into specific talents, that keep the talent diversity the way it is now, where you're able to use many different talents in different situations. So that's all I got for you guys. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video.